Joining me is Leith van Onselen, co-founder of MacroBusiness and a former Federal Treasury official. I recommend his MacroBusiness site. Great articles there. Leith, great to see you again. Look, inflation's still far too high. Why didn't the Reserve Bank hike interest rates? It said that was the other option it had. Either freeze them where they are now, which it did, or hike them, not cut them.
Yeah, Andrew, the RBA is trying to balance basically two competing priorities. So one of them is obviously to try and keep inflation within its target of 2 to 3%. We're above that, obviously. But the other one is the Reserve Bank's trying to maintain full employment, and the economy is, as you said, is incredibly weak. We've had 5 consecutive quarters of negative per capita GDP growth. We're about to record a 6th. That will end up being the longest per capita decline, basically in records going back to the 1970s. Not the deepest, but the longest. And because of that, obviously, we've got rising unemployment, and the consumer economy is deep in recession. And because of that, the RBA's held.
Well, it's interesting. We see the opposition today blaming government spending, which has gone up 16%. Federal government spending 16% in 2 years. Incredible. State governments also spending like drunken sailors, a massive amount. The Reserve Bank governor today said, oh, look, sure, that goes up, but other things go down. I'm not sure, trying to be really diplomatic. But what do you think is the problem? Is it that? Is it too little productivity? Is it too much immigration? What is weakening the economy and making interest rates so high and not falling?
Yeah, look, a lot of it does get down to policy failure. So obviously we've got the federal government pumping demand through its extreme levels of immigration. That's pushing up inflation across the economy, especially in areas like rents. We have the energy policy failures, which has Australia paying some of the highest energy prices in the world. That obviously feeds into cost of living, inflation, sending our manufacturers broke, etc. And then at the same time, we have state governments spending, record amounts on infrastructure. So we have what a fellow economist, Tarek Brooker, describes as a burnout economy, whereby the federal government has the foot planted on the accelerator while the Reserve Bank's got the foot planted on the brake trying to slow the economy. So the federal and state governments are working at cross purposes.
Now, you've in fact warned, and you mentioned it just earlier, referred to it in passing. You did a great article on this, that Australia is in its worst recession in modern times, with our average household disposable income falling like a stone. That's the bottom line there in blue. Now, we actually did another Vox Pop here at Sky News today that showed what that looks like to many Australians. Have a listen.
How's it affecting you at the moment? The
interest rate, the rents. It's going up all the time.
Well, we've got to listen to the people that are doing it tough.
Well, we decided to move back to my parents a couple of months ago after my 2-year mortgage was up, the fixed rate. We couldn't afford the new interest rate. So, yeah, we're back home now.
Yeah, I feel for them. I really do. But as long as that interest rate is up high, I get more money and I can survive.
Leith, it drives me nuts that the government carries on like, oh no, it's all going tickety-boo because, overall, we're growing because of the huge immigration. People are really hurting. There's no sense of crisis that this is, as you say, per capita, a terrible recession. Why is that?
Yeah, mate. Well, it's an absolute shocker for basically 2/3 of Australians. So roughly 1/3 of Australians rent. They're obviously getting smashed by this extreme rental inflation that we're getting, primarily caused by the surge in immigration. And then another 1/3 of Australians roughly have owner-occupied mortgages, and they're getting smashed, obviously, by these, a 50% increase in their mortgage repayments. So, 2/3 of the Australians getting smashed. The only 1/3 of Australia that's doing okay are those who own the homes outright, because they are basically insulated from these rental pressures and mortgage interest rates. So that's essentially why Australians are doing it so tough. And then you add other things like the energy policy failure, which is, ramped up gas and electricity prices, insurance price shocks, all those sorts of things. It's a recipe for disaster, Andrew.
It's interesting that what you mention is basically government failure. You're not saying Ukraine, you're not saying Russia, you're not saying America, you're not saying Japan, you're not saying China, like the Treasurer was busy doing today.